next I'm going to throw it over to Central Committee.
So there is absolutely no evidence of voter fraud whatsoever. The evidence that Normal America proposed was, at best, suspicion and not related to any actual indication of a single fraudulent ballot. Now, I actually do have proof of voter fraud, and it was posted helpfully by my Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, when they caught a man from 40 Fort, PA, who was trying to request a mail-in ballot for his dead mother. He was caught, and he was arrested, and he's now facing 7 years in prison, and he's out on $10,000 bail for trying to commit voter fraud. Because we have processes in place to actually catch you immediately if you try to commit voter fraud by sending in the ballot of a deceased person. And he didn't even get granted a ballot. He was arrested based off the fraudulent application for a mail-in ballot. In Pennsylvania, in particular, since that state was brought up, in order to be an observer, the campaign puts forward their representatives before the election, and those get to be certified poll watchers. And every single poll, when counting takes place, has certified poll watchers from each party. They're representatives of the campaign, and they go in and observe the count. There is absolutely no room whatsoever for any kind of shenanigans because the opposition is right there. There is a clear chain of custody for when the ballots arrive at the polling place. The voters are verified. The ballots are moved from the mail-in ballot within a secrecy ballot, so you have no idea who anybody voted for. And then that ballot is placed in a controlled location. There's clear chain of custody. It is open and above board for everyone to see, which is why Trump's DHS just today put out a report that this was the most secure election in American history. There is zero evidence of voter fraud. And COPE, it's pathetic, honestly. And it wasn't that particularly close, to be honest with you. It was close in the general sense, but as far as an electoral count sense, it was clearly decisive. Trump has no chance. He needs to concede, and every single Republican that continues on with this is either a knowing liar or a dupe who's being fooled and manipulated for someone else's benefit. So don't be either one of those.
Mike, you had your hand up, I saw.
Yeah, so what's funny about this is the grandiose term whistleblower for somebody who did not witness the crime occur. This is hearsay within hearsay, right? I think I heard somebody else talking about somebody else doing something. That is not the same thing as I witnessed them backdating ballots fraudulently. And this is the best evidence they have. Somebody who, when the investigators went to look into it, the only lead they had was this guy saying he heard a thing through the crack in a door. And the result was he said, well, maybe I could have heard it wrong. There is no proof of anything. And that's what they're grasping onto. The fact that they're going to end up losing Pennsylvania by 100,000 votes. They're looking into one post office in Erie where a guy heard a guy talking about something.
That's not the only thing.
That's not the only.
And that is why we have serious problems with this entire topic. At least I do, because it advances the idea that some sort of fraudulent behavior occurred when there were literally thousands of poll watchers. There are dozens of attorneys. And when Trump's own attorneys go into court, as has happened 2 days ago, and they ask them, hey, what's your proof do you have any evidence of voter fraud? Their answer is no. Because as Vaush said earlier, when they're actually put in a position where their bar license is at risk, or they have a perjury charge that they might face, they end up walking away from it. And that's why everybody who is advancing this is, as I said in the beginning, either a knowing liar or a foolish dupe. And you don't want to be either one of those.
He just, at the persuasive techniques of the interrogators after him, said, yeah, I guess you're right. They could have meant something else. And the fact that people on the left, I thought that we were allies in this, of like false confessions that were given by people, interrogation techniques that are used by law enforcement agents. But somehow, as soon as it benefits Joe Biden and the Democrats, and as soon as it gets a whistleblower that...
Okay,
yeah,
hold on. Having listened to the interview, and you haven't, there was nothing wrong going on there. This is their job. The actual words that Hopkins heard were ballots picked up on the 4th, ellipses. One of them was marked the 4th and the rest were the 3rd. By his own admission in that interrogation process, none of the words that he had heard actually indicated postmarking to the 3rd. None of them. He had assumed that, and he admitted that assumption, and that the claim he had made in his original affidavit was a product of an assumption that he had made, unfounded. These are all factual pieces of information. The investigators did not do some sneaky voodoo mind magic. They asked simple questions. They did what every investigation does for every single whistleblower, every single crime, everything. This is the process by which we determine the legitimacy of claims. And if your claims to election fraud are so weak that they can't even hold up under these circumstances, you're not going to overturn the election. You're not going to overturn shit. You're going to get Twitter likes and retweets. Okay? It's just pathetic to me. We are not allies in this. When the left talks about misappropriation or poor behavior on the part of investigators, we have actual evidence for it. Not, I don't like the claim that was made at the outcome of this. I disagree with the outcome. Therefore, the process is unjust. We know goddamn well that if those investigators had come away without any sort of retraction on his part, if they had just come away with no denunciation of the information that he originally provided in the affidavit, you would be throwing that up in the air. You would be tattooing it on your chest and running through the field of the local stadium. You just don't like the outcome.
Just a legitimate whistleblower. Even these
him.
investigators said
So
they said that he could potentially be in legal jeopardy.
You keep
saying
this thing, right? About how the detectives are using this these special ninjutsu interrogation methods. You can threaten someone legally with legal action. There's a lot of different threats that are not protected under the law. You can't threaten to kill someone's family over something. You can't threaten to ruin their house. But you can threaten them with legal action. If someone is I'm going to destroy your property, you can be like, if you do that, I'm going to sue you. That is not a threat. That is you saying I'm going to use the things at my disposal because you're doing something illegal. That's not a threat. That is perfectly valid and complete.
Well, no, but what he is saying though, but what he is saying is the idea that they're threatening him with legal action. Like if they pick up a person, they say, "Hey, we're going to put you in jail for what you did, but you didn't do it, right?" But they're threatening you, so they're scaring you. He's implying that them threatening that legal action was an intimidation technique, but he's also operating under the assumption that the guy is telling the truth. So he thinks that because
they did him a favor. If that guy ever steps into a court of law and he takes an oath, he could end up perjuring himself. Now that they've stopped this process here, I think they've actually saved this guy a lot of potential trouble down the line.
If you know that you're saying the truth and you know that someone your lawyer or whatever will defend you, and you know that you have everything that you're recounting is completely true, then this threat means absolutely nothing to you because you haven't done anything illegal. Look,
they do use
pressuring techniques.
One at a time.
They'll push on people and until you agree with them or until they can get you as close to what they think is the truth, right? But you can't classify saying hey, if you are lying right now, if you genuinely are lying and you're not saying the truth, you will face legal repercussions. That's not a threat. That's just them telling you, hey, just make sure you know what you're doing and that you're not actually, lying about something you're not supposed to be lying about.
How about we let this go to court? We can just settle this in court. Just let him see if he can prove his case to a judge beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? And let's let that decide the metric for whether or not this is something we should take seriously.
If I may.
I shoot down this entire line real quick. This is not an investigator investigating this guy for a criminal charge, which is where the pressures that these guys are bringing up would bear. Where there is somebody who is facing legal jeopardy for their own actions. This is an investigation of some other person, and they're trying to find out the truth. Implicit in what these conservatives are saying is that the investigators came here to debunk this accusation. Exactly. When in fact, they came there to investigate. And they found out that this guy's evidence was so thin and pathetic that they needed to expose it openly, that in fact, he had no direct knowledge of any fraud. He had something that he heard through a crack in the door that he thought might be a thing. And when they tested it, he folded. And they said, for the purpose of revealing the truth, this is false. And when they asked the guy how confident he was in the information he was spreading, he was unconfident. He was not willing to verify it. And in fact, the idea that he was then going to conservatives to then grift hundreds of thousands of dollars from mad coping Trump supporters is probably an indication that he had a conflict of interest and not the investigators that were there to find out the truth. So every part of this conservative argument is flawed completely, and they have no leg to stand on. Is there anything else in this topic, or can we please move on?
No, I'd
You wanna
like to
respond to
finish.
that?
You three got a chance to speak on this. So what we heard talk about was the idea of, well, Vaush says they did him a favor because if he went to court, he could have perjured himself. Again, even these investigators don't say that he was lying. I also think you're factually incorrect that this is hearsay. Firsthand knowledge of hearing someone is not hearsay. That's
he admitted
evidence
he
that could be
didn't
used in the
even-
court of law.
Okay,
And we have
you know what
111
hearsay-
affidavits that were signed by
hearsay
people.
is an out-of-court statement used to prove the matter asserted.
You know, this is the second time you've interrupted somebody, Central Committee, right? Like, I get you wanting to be a part of the conversation, right? Like, I get you wanting to do that, but you don't do that just by talking over people.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here when he's factually wrong about the definition of a word when he goes for 5 minutes being wrong about something that
It's
anyone would
like you're
in-
the only one
in-
interrupting.
In
Well,
the
then
words,
then he
of
countered.
the investigator, it's not even hearsay; it's an assumption. Because when he actually said which words he had heard, it wasn't even enough to indicate that he had heard a person saying they were going to commit a crime. He just heard certain words that he then framed in a way that was criminal. So it's not even hearsay. It's like if you're listening to like your two parents talk in the other room and you hear like the words, I don't know, not my favorite oldest son, and you're the youngest son, and you assume that means they like the older son more, and then you leave the house, like you go out on a journey to leave your parents. Like, it's not even enough to be wrong, you know? So the claim is by Republicans that this election is being stolen. That is the sole claim we are focusing on. Whether or not Hillary Clinton or whatever did some dumbass shit 10 or 15 or 5 years ago was utterly irrelevant to the claim being handled now. With that being said, we are at a massively different scale of misappropriative behavior here. First of all, Hillary Clinton, for all of her whining, did concede the election when she lost. Donald Trump has yet to, meaning that his doubts and the doubts that he has sown are significant enough that he is delaying what has been a centuries-long process of civil democracy. Additionally, there's a very different level of skepticism that you apply to claims on different levels. First of all, I do believe that all American elections are rigged, but I believe that in the Chomskyist sense, that through manufactured consent, Americans are led away from their material interests, that we are deluded, essentially. They're rigged in the sense that the propaganda we consume leads us to vote in ways contrary to our interest. But that's not the same thing as claiming that the actual vote, like consumerism stuff. But that's not the same as saying the actual vote count that is recorded is inaccurate. That's a very specific and very demanding claim. So even if these other figures in the past have made these sort of lofty claims about the election and its legitimacy, that does not speak to what has happened over the past few weeks.
And if I may respond, if I can, like you say, this is a centuries-old tradition of conceding. Can you remind me what happened in 2000 in that election? Al Gore conceded the next day.
He conceded the moment.
He conceded
the moment the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
the moment the Supreme Court dropped the case for recount, he conceded. Yeah, he conceded the moment he realized there was no legal avenue for him getting a recount in Florida, which was a difference of 500 votes under incredibly suspicious circumstances that subsequent recounts have all determined that he legitimately won, were it not for meddling that had taken place in that state. So the moment he realized there wasn't a legal route, he dropped it. Donald Trump has no legal route for victory. He has not dropped it.
Mike, I just threw it to you.
So the court case he's talking about are ballots that were postmarked by election day but arrived after the original statutory deadline, but within the period where foreign military ballots can be received by federal law. They can arrive up to 6 days after the election. So there was a accommodation made by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the ultimate arbiter of the Pennsylvania Constitution, that under the Pennsylvania Constitution, there would be an additional 3 days that ballots postmarked by the election could be received and counted. However, they segregated those ballots and they still have not been counted and they're not included in the vote count. So you're just totally lying about that case. You're just factually wrong. Nothing postmarked after election day, unless it is within a foreign military ballot where there is a different exception according to federal law. Will be counted, number one. And what was the other case you were totally wrong about? I forgot.
I wasn't totally wrong about that. A court case just rolled the ballots that were received after November 9th.
The signatures.
Right.
So what was happening is Republican or Democratic officials, when looking at a signature on a absentee ballot verification statement, they were subjectively judging So these people are not signature experts. They were just looking at signatures that people made on this envelope and go, I don't think that matches. I'm going to throw that ballot out. And that was ruled to be unconstitutional, that you can't have subjective elections of judges doing signature analysis subjectively and deciding to throw people's votes out because the signature was too different from a voter registration they did 30 years ago. I don't know about you, chat, but my signature has changed from when I registered to vote back in 2002. So if
mine hasn't changed since I was a teenager.
Okay, well, we understand conservatives don't change.
Right. So so what that's called is
I don't have a signature. I just make it up every time.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, Vaush.
Hold on. So what that's called is being consistent, right? Being consistent, and that right there is the number one point.
Okay, everybody stop. Buddy stop. I can only hear one person at a time. Obviously, Mike.
What?
When I talk, you shut up.
Okay, go ahead. What do you want?
Number one rule. I started with that. Okay. We can only hear one person at a time, so let's not all talk over each other. Mike, finish, and then I'll throw it over to CTV.
All right. So both cases he just brought up were adjudicated by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is the ultimate arbiter of Pennsylvania law, and that's a long-standing legal principle. And he was factually wrong about both elements. It was they didn't want to have subjective interpretations of signatures throwing out people's legal ballots, and the other one was he was totally wrong about the postmarks. So
why did they segregate those ballots?
Yes, they segregated them under.
Why did they segregate them at the Pennsylvania courts, the ultimate arbiter? What's the segregation for?
Because they wanted to ensure that there was an opportunity for a cure. So if they
what kind of cure? What kind of cure would that be?
Throwing the ballots out or not counting them. But
wait, Rob, you gotta let Mike finish. Enough. I would like, if you ask him a question, I'd like to hear the rest of it.
So basically the answer is they wanted to be super sure that the count was secure and that there would be no ballots that any conservative could quote question. And so those ballots have been set aside to ensure that Biden's lead is clear and objective and there's no basis for an objection. And you can get I think it's like 900 ballots statewide thrown out if you want, but it doesn't make up 100,000 ballots. Trump lost. Stop sniffing the copium and move on.
All right, so Mike, I'm going to ask you this: when Hillary Clinton was going through her thing and she's thought there needed to be stuff looked into, did you have any problem with that?
First of all, she didn't. 4 years is a long time for a conservative brain, but I'll help you. She did not ask for a recount. It was the Green Party grifting. And they got to raise money to recount these ballots. And
okay, so then the election before that, did you have any problem?
Because
it's my fucking time right now. I asked you to answer a specific fucking question, not to keep moving on down the line, right? So since it's my time, sit right there, chill the fuck out, let me ask the goddamn questions.
Holy shit!
All right. Now, that being said, Mike, did you have a problem with investigations happening in any election before that ever?
Whenever there are valid,
if there are questions, you just want the questions to be answered.
CTV,
right?
if you ask him a question, I would like to hear his answer. He was trying to answer. I couldn't even hear him.
Fair enough.
All right, I will chill. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get riled up, but conservatives do that to me sometimes because it's like talking to a wall. Hillary Clinton didn't do a recount, and in 2016, when the Green Party paid for one, Hillary Clinton's lawyers went there and said, we don't believe that there is a grounds for a recount. We believe that Donald Trump was the clear winner here. And the results were closer in many of the states than they are now.
And so, I guess we'll take this all the way back to 2000 with Al Gore. Did you have a problem with them doing any type of looking into? Do you have a real problem when people have questions of them being allowed to go through the investigative process to find out what the truth is, so that everybody's mind can be put at ease? Or are you only concerned about it whenever it's your candidate?
Okay,
right? Because if that's the case, then you're suspect. And at that point, I can't take anything that you're saying past that serious because you're only beholden to one party. You're not looking at
before Vaush. That was directed at Mike, so I'm going to give Mike a chance to respond. Then I'll throw it straight to a promise.
I'll respond and then I'll throw it to Vaush. Very simply, even if all of your objection were granted, Trump still lost Pennsylvania.
Hey, Vaush, there you go.
Okay. I just want to say this really frustrates me when conservatives do this, okay? What the conservatives will do is they'll throw literally like hundreds of completely bad faith or factually disproven arguments at the wall. None of them stick. And then when they're getting ready for another 100, you're like, hey, dude, chill out, okay? You lost. And you're like, 20 years ago in that incredibly close, historically close election in Florida. Remember when you did that one recount? It's like, come on, man. The Republican Party and Donald Trump have been engaging in an insane amount of disinformation. We can count up piles of false claims like that. The old lady they brought on, remember, to say that when she tried to vote, her vote had already been cast, and it turns out that it had been cast by her and she was the one who attempted voter fraud. Or the claims with regards to the them shutting out like Taco. People in my chat are spamming Taco. Did something happen?
I think it's the cat's
Don't
name.
worry about it.
That's the cat's name. It's a beautiful cat. The fact of the matter is, like, we know what the result of this election was. There was no combination of legal avenues here that's going to change the outcome. If you want, you should investigate legitimate claims, but let's be real here, okay? Conservatives aren't. That's why all the most egregious claims they don't bring to court. They just keep it to Twitter. We know why they do that. And it's because these claims do not withstand legal scrutiny. So they keep it on social media. If your goal is to investigate the truth, that is fine. Let the courts take as long as they want to sorting out these claims, acknowledging, however, the fact that Biden won, and there's no combination of legal outcomes that'll change that, unless you find some extraordinarily, magically stupid shit that nobody else has managed to find in one of the most scrutinized elections in all of history. Or if you want to keep it to social media and just get a bunch of retweets and likes angrily accosting Democrats of, silently assassinating Republicans on their way to the post office to mail in their ballots or whatever, then do that. But let's stop pretending that there was an equal level of good faith being held here between both sides of this equation, okay? As far as I'm concerned, if the RNC supported even one easily disprovable claim, that, as far as I'm concerned, that's evidence to not take them seriously anymore. But they've done this dozens of times. So I don't know, like, what's the end game here? We disprove all this crap, then you come up with another 100 people who say they overheard people claiming that they were going to engage in voter fraud. When does this end?
Every single anecdote you've heard about voter fraud has been so thoroughly debunked, it's embarrassing that we have to do it. Donald Trump lost this election in historic fashion with the number of votes cast for his opponent, breaking all previous candidates. In Pennsylvania in particular, there is absolutely no chance, even if all of Donald Trump's charges are approved, outside of throwing out all mail-in ballots, that he could ever reverse this election. Donald Trump has been defeated. That's that, and it ain't even close.
I wanted to just say the thing that I want to say earlier in my ending statement. I wanted to piggyback really quickly off of something Vaush said about like the fact that it's difficult to compare the 2000 election with the 2020 election, and that currently it seems to be sort of this like race for retweets and this like race for like getting as much reactionaries on board as possible. And I think that this is very evident from like 2000 election. You're asking for a recount. You think that this is a race that's close enough that's worth recounting, right? Versus, Donald Trump getting on and being like, if you count the legal votes, I win easily. If you count the illegal votes, then I don't win. Like you're telling people, hey, don't trust our system. This is fraud. And then let's recount it. You know what I mean? Like it's a completely different thing. It's not even close to comparable.
Yeah, I mean, again, even if Donald Trump was right about even if Donald Trump was right about every current claim they're pursuing, it wouldn't change the fact that he was violently dishonest the entire electoral process, from prematurely declaring victory to blowing up scandals that weren't really scandals to just lying about election results. What's terrifying is that this is causing an actual schism in the Republican Party. Everyone from the media to individual Republican voters to Republican politicians are now caught in a rift. Do they accept reality, the one where Biden won and this election was safely held, or do they go along with this delusional narrative that in spite of all contrary evidence, the election is being stolen from Trump? There are people right now trying to cancel Fox News for reporting factually on the processes at hand. We've done irreparable damage to our ability to have civil conversations, have democratic conversations in the future through what? Because you have a couple of concerns that some tweet threads and that haven't been disproven yet, because there are some errant criticisms amongst the hundreds that have been debunked that haven't yet been debunked. We have paid a steep price for no gain. And that's disappointing. At the end of the day, I mean, if we have problems with the outcomes of elections, I would much rather we live in reality and discuss things like corporate compliance or manufactured consent, or the actual systems. So voter suppression, actual systems by which election results are illegitimate, not these delusional fantasies where people can continue living in MAGA land for another 4 years. Let's focus our concerns on where the problems actually exist.
So you don't have to live in a world like Endernax, which his ultimate goal is that we enter into eco-fascism so we can kill the brown people because, well, we got to survive. It's global eco-fascism. That's garbage.
You're actually an awful human being, and you should probably just leave.
That's what you were.
Ironically, listen. I only want to get rid of you. That's it. In Minecraft, I only want to get rid of you in Minecraft. That's it. But you're the only person.
So that's real. Okay, let's bring this back. Bring it back. No, we're not gonna do the in Minecraft memes. Okay, that was pretty directed towards Ender.
Okay,
so
let
Ender,
me finish. Let me just finish the point. He screeched. He screeched in the middle to say that.
Yeah, because you accuse me of being an evil human being. Go fuck yourself.
Okay, I see that you're triggered. Calm down.
No, really? When you accuse someone of being a shitty person, they get mad? Holy shit, Central Committee! Oh my god, what a discovery!
Debate,
or are you
yourself? Are you gonna be triggered, motherfucker?
Oh my god, look at him, he's triggered! Oh my god, look guys, he's triggered! I don't care! Fuck you!
Everybody stop. Everybody, holy moly.
Can I finish my point?
Oh my god, I love my job. Okay.